All right, everyone, we start off today with the meltdown continuing. Even the legacy media is finding it real difficult to cope with the DOJ report on Biden's cognitive decline. Their report states explicitly, we've all seen it, but by now even people living under a rock have seen it, I barely need to reiterate. They said that one of the reasons that they weren't going to charge Joe Biden is because one of the inevitable defenses that would be used by the defendant, Mr. Joseph Biden, would be that he's got memory loss. In interviews, he forgot when his son died, he couldn't remember the year that he left the vice presidency, etc., etc. Just a litany of examples of his cognitive capabilities. We know this. This is coming from people writing up a report effectively in his defense explaining why they're not going to prosecute him. These are not necessarily hostile actors. Now, Karine Jean-Pierre and Kamala Harris and Biden himself can come out and do all the damage control that they want. But it's so upfront, so in your face, and so objective, this particular report, that even the legacy media, they're not circling the wagons like they usually do. This has only happened a few times. Normally, let's say the jobs report comes in too cool. Unemployment ticked up. Inflation rose by 0.2 or something like that. Core inflation rose. There's been some sort of major international, like the withdrawal from Afghanistan or something. What we've seen typically are fluff pieces saying, well, it's actually Orange Man's fault. Or, well, it's not as bad as you think. Here's other fuzzy statistics that show that the uptick in unemployment is just a blip and it's not really a problem. This is the sort of thing that we see. And you've got active coordination between the White House and the legacy media, especially on economic messaging. Again, this was bragged about. This is not a conspiracy theory. They admitted it openly and publicly. This time, there's very little wagon circling. And that's because of the source of the actual report being the fucking DOJ. And so what I'm seeing is a lot of pieces like, wow, can the Democrats really stick with this dude at this point? Hey, because you can't blame Orange Man. You can't blame Orange Man for memory loss in another person, or cognitive decline in general. You can't blame Trump. You can't blame extremists or conspiracy theories or something. This is coming from an official government source saying that the current sitting president of the United States suffers from memory loss commensurate to such a degree that he cannot even be prosecuted for a significant crime. And a crime is what Joe Biden committed. Donald Trump can say, well, I was president of the United States. Yeah, I took classified documents back to the Mar-a-Lago, much like Clinton and others have. It was legal. I was the president. I've already seen the documents. It's already in my head anyway. I need to be able to reference this because the former president typically remains effectively in an advisory capacity to whoever the sitting president is. I know that that's not really actionable between Trump and Biden. Biden doesn't want Trump's advice, wouldn't take it. Trump doesn't want to offer the advice and would be just shut out anyway. But in theory, on paper, that's typically what happens. Should probably alarm people that George W. still has a direct line to the White House, by the way. That could be problematic. Like Biden coordinates with Obama on a regular basis. Obama coordinated with Clinton on a regular basis. Bush, I'm sure, called Daddy up once in a while, and called and Bush Daddy towards the end he was probably calling Ronald Reagan, Ron, got big problems here. The polling is not looking good. Can you fucking bail me out or something? Be a bro. This happens. He can use that excuse. But Joe Biden, at the time that he took the documents home, was not the president of the United States. He was the VP, and before that, he was in the Senate. He's not legally allowed to do so. You're telling me that the person who, on paper at least, is the commander-in-chief of the U.S. Armed Forces and the head diplomat of the United States, this explains a lot about our current military readiness and our diplomatic situations, by the way, I think, is not capable of standing trial for a meaningful crime, which he did objectively commit and effectively admitted to anyway, because he can't remember his own name. He's that far gone. That's normally not a legal defense that prevails. It's often gone with, okay, my client, put our lawyer hats on, so I'm defending some client. I'm their lawyer. My client at the time was not cognizant of what was going on. Like that chick that killed her boyfriend, stabbed him to death because she was high as balls. Somehow she got off for it. It's rare that that happens. I can go, effectively you're pleading insanity. Or if not insanity, just incapability. Okay, my client did not understand and could not be expected to understand that their actions were illegal. They weren't aware of what was going on at the time. They were in psychosis. They were delusional. Or my client is not competent to stand trial because, look, they're elderly, they're fucking demented. What a normal person would do, and it would land them in jail, they can't help. They're demented. They should be on the funny farm, effectively. And so we're asking that the sentence be that they get put in custody of the state. They get put in the lunatic asylum or something like that. Those defenses typically fail, regardless, by the way, of the crime that's been alleged. With Biden, though, they found a way. But the problem is that the cure is worse than the disease. The disease would be, okay, shit, the President of the United States is now on trial. And legally going forward, that's going to get messy because he might claim immunity just like Trump has been doing, and it'll just be a goddamn hot mess. The cure is, well, we're not going to put him on trial because he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He's an old man, a sad old man with memory problems. He can't even remember what he ate last night. That would be fine, except, like, put yourself in the shoes of a business owner. Here's a good example. You have a factory, and you produce, I don't know, whatever, you have groceries or something. You got a grocery store. We'll use that as an example instead. I know that one of my employees, they're getting older now. They're like 75 or 80 or something, and their mind is beginning to go. But all they do is bag groceries. Is that a real problem? No, okay, they dropped the grapefruit on the floor. I like this dude, he's been working for me for 20 years and stuff. I'm not going to shit can him for dropping the grapefruit a couple times. Maybe he says weird shit sometimes, or he putters around, he's not sure when his shift is. He failed to come in because he napped all day. Okay, but I'm going to deal with him. Joe Schmo, the employee, I like him, he's been employed with me, I've got some loyalty to him too, and so I'm not going to shit can him. But let's say that his job were driving a truck for my grocery store. So he drives the prepared groceries. He goes on his local run, DoorDash or some shit like that. Delivery service or something. Do I want him behind the wheel? I don't necessarily want to be legally culpable for what he does when he's behind the wheel, because he might have a hazy moment at a stop sign, press the wrong pedal, and run over a toddler or something like that. The problem is that his particular job role is President of the United States. Again, on paper, he's got access to the nuclear football, and he's the one conducting mainline diplomacy for the entire country. And allocating resources, discretionary spending and shit like that for national defense. I think that we've gotten to the crux of the problem of why the border's a mess, diplomacy's a mess, crime is rising, and everything's falling apart, because Biden is falling apart. That means not that Biden is directly responsible for these things, because he's not calling the shots. Behind closed doors, other people are, and they're clearly incompetent. Part of it is the egotism of human beings. These people compete with one another for advancement and shit like that, for money. They're going to stab each other in the back because humans are basically, a more evolved version of an ape, effectively. So they act that way. Joe Biden is the most stupid orangutan in the zoo, by the way. So other people have taken command, and they're competing with one another and screwing one another, and they're screwing the country in the process. Somehow that's worse in some ways, other than with the nuclear codes. Okay, at least the people that are actually controlling them are mentally sane. They might be war pigs, which, last night was trending for a reason. And Kanye and Ozzy getting into it. Weird fucking timeline that we're living in so far this year. But Joe Biden is demented. We've got it from the government itself. They said they're not going to prosecute him because he's got memory loss. Well, you shouldn't be in that kind of role if you have memory loss. Some people are saying, well, they're going to throw him under the bus and replace him. That's entirely possible. It definitely became calculably more likely in the last 48 hours. Just not going to be Michelle Obama. But I have a feeling they're actually nuts enough to let him run. They might not have a choice. He goes through the primaries, refuses to bow out, gets 99% of the delegates. It's going to look real goddamn bad if he shows up at the Democratic meeting there and says, oh, I'm glad that y'all voted for me, but I'm not actually going to be the one that you get to vote for in the general. You got to vote for this bullshitter, Gavin Newsom or somebody like that, Whitmer. I think that would not go over well with some Democratic partisan voters, actually. I have a feeling you'd be throwing the election. I'm not saying I would complain. And certainly, the live analysis that night would be fucking lit. I'd have to go for 3 or 4 hours probably, but politically speaking, I think it'd be almost suicidal. Sort of like if the GOP brokers their convention, by the way. That's about all. Peace out.